these meetings are recorded. I paused it and forgot to restart it. So just know that the meeting is being recorded. And then naturally with this partnership, we are working very closely with Ann Arbor City staff. There's a handful of other staff members and departments that we coordinate with throughout the project, but specifically we've been working mostly with Andrea, Chris, and Luke. So this is our meeting agenda for tonight. Like I said, a lot of this is just going to be orientation to the program. However, the chunk of our time will hopefully be spent under that third section where we will review the devices, present the starter idea, and start some conversation and get some feedback. So I'll go through these as quickly as I can, but we've got a couple slides on technology overview, just how to provide feedback throughout the meeting. So if you're joining from a computer or using the Zoom app on your phone, there are a couple ways of asking questions and providing feedback throughout tonight. You can virtually raise and lower your hand using the button at the bottom of your screen. This will notify us that you would like to speak. Once you're recognized, you'll be given permission to unmute on your end. If you'd rather type a question or comment out, you can press the Q&A button that's also at the bottom of your screen. A chat box will appear. You can type in the text box, press send to submit your message, and then if you would like to do that anonymously, just make sure that you check the box there as well. And I don't see anyone who's dialing in by phone. I'll skip those directions, but there are options to participate in the Q&A if you do join by phone in the future, or if we have other people join. And then throughout the presentation, there will be multiple points where we will ask for some feedback. We'll ask some polling questions. Again, if you're using your computer, just using the app, when the poll is launched, it should automatically pop up for you. Sometimes it can hide behind other screens, so hopefully your layout, if you're using your computer, doesn't do that, but raise your hand if you come up with any issues along the way. So it'll pop up automatically. After you answer the polling question, you can press submit. Once I close the poll, I'll share the results, and then you can either X that out, close them, or I'll just close the results for everyone when we're ready to move on. One last thing, aside from the phone dial-in directions, this polling is anonymous during the meeting, but if you were dialing in by phone, you'd have to unmute yourself. So in that aspect, it wouldn't be completely anonymous, but for everyone else, it'll just show the results and won't show names or anything. So we'll do launch of our first poll just as a test. Find it because they changed the layout on here, but I've just launched the first poll question. If you can just complete that. It's asking if you live in the project area, and just the reminder that our project area is Carmel Street between Easy Street and Towner Boulevard. So I shall share the results. So you'll see that majority of us are within the project area. These meetings are open to the public, so it's perfectly fine to have other community members joining and participating and giving feedback. But it's good to know how many people might be part of the actual project area. Okay, move on. Next, just a couple online meeting etiquette bullet points. We're well into this being a norm, but during the presentation and especially during any feedback from your fellow community members, just please keep these Zoom norms in mind. Just we try to start on time so we can end on time. We want to be very mindful of the fact this is a weeknight. It's for some people it's outside of your normal schedule, so we want to be respectful of everyone's time. Raise your hand to be recognized to talk. As we explained, the options to do that. We'll only have one speaker at a time. If you are speaking, please move to a quiet area. Try to silence any background noise when speaking. Just make sure you're speaking loud and clear so everyone can hear you. Same goes for me. If I'm coming through muffled or too quiet, please let me know. We'll try to give everyone a chance to speak before we have any repeat speakers. So when we have these pauses in the presentation to get feedback, we want to make sure that everyone has a chance. Just be respectful of other ideas and perspectives. We want to avoid finger pointing. Try to differentiate between fact and opinion. Lastly, anything written or spoken throughout the meeting that's inappropriate, any inappropriate comment or language, including personal attacks and accusations, that'll just result in an immediate removal from the meeting. But other than that, if there's anything else you think might have been missed in how we operate this meeting, I'll pause here. You can use the Q&A, you can raise your hand, and we'll give you a minute before I move forward. I'm not seeing any activity in the Q&A or the hand raising. I will add that I think there can sometimes be a delay with this. So if it ever seems like I'm pausing abnormally long, it's just, I don't want anything to get cut off while I'm transitioning between slides. But I still don't see anything, so I'll move forward. So just moving right into the next section of the traffic calming process. What is traffic calming? Traffic calming is the combination of mainly physical measures that reduce the negative effects of motor vehicle use, alter driver behavior, and improve the conditions for non-motorized street users. So people on or walking on in bikes, wheelchairs, scooters, other non-motorized vulnerable things that can impact vulnerable users. So the focus in traffic calming is to make changes that will not only make roads safer for drivers, but again, safer for those vulnerable road users. Ann Arbor has a huge number of examples of this. Some of them will show it in the slides, but if you're familiar with Ann Arbor, you know that there's a lot of emphasis and care in trying to make sure that we're considering the safety of all users when they're making changes to the street. So this is the general process of the traffic calming program in Ann Arbor. It's designed to provide residents with a formal process for engaging with the city in a partnership to perform a technical analysis of traffic concerns and also explore those potential solutions using fundamentals of traffic calming. So this applies to only local streets. It's a 5-step program. Our role, when I say our, mine, Christina's, is currently assisting with that second step through the final polling. So I'll briefly describe each step, but there's also a guidebook available online and also a very tiny one that was mailed to project members. But that will have more detail if you need to review anything after the meeting. So step 1 was the resident initiated petition. The Carmel Street project started with one of your neighbors acting as the petitioner. They submitted a request to the traffic calming program for Carmel Street between Easy Street and Towner Boulevard. After this project area was defined, the petitioner gathered signatures from other residents who also live within that area. The requirement for the traffic calming program to accept that request is that at least 50% of the defined project area must support the project, and a preliminary technical study must result in at least 10 points. So this project area collected signatures from 56% of addresses, and then the preliminary study resulted in 16 points. There's a breakdown of those points on our project website. But this allowed us to move on to step 2, the initial questionnaire. This came in the form of a mailing package. It had the questionnaire, both an option to fill out and mail in or to complete online through our SurveyMonkey. This was sent to all of the project area residents to gather feedback on, your experience that you may have had with traffic calming, whether it was positive or negative, any specific concerns you have with the street, and just to get a good picture of how the neighborhood currently feels about safety in the area. So the requirement to move on to step 3 was that at least 50% of those who participated in the questionnaire had to support the project moving forward. So whereas the first, that initial petition, that was based on of all the addresses within the defined area, at least 50% had to support that. This step here was just of those people who participated in the questionnaire. So with the responses that we got, there was a 67% support recorded. And this, the summary of the questionnaire is also on the project website. It's listed at the top of the slide, but just in general, the results of the questionnaire indicated that some of the common concerns that came up were cut-through traffic, speeding, that sharp bend in Carmel, and, excuse me, that sharp bend was difficult to navigate. There's also a concern that traffic calming does not address or can add to existing backup issues. I know there was a citing of the other traffic calming projects, like the speed humps that are on Easy Street or outside the project area, but just nearby, created a lot of cut-through traffic coming in and using Carmel. But the starred locations, there were some important pedestrian crossings that were mentioned, because we got the park over there on the west, and there's also an existing compact roundabout at Easy and Carmel. But this was kind of these were some of the common issues that came up. Again, I'll pause here if there's anything else that that you think might be missing from this list, or anything to clarify in the area. We can take a moment for any comments or questions. Okay, not seeing anything. We'll keep moving. So step 3 is where we are today. This is where our focus will be for the rest of the meeting. We have a starter idea that we've created, but before we do that, we'll just kind of run through some of the devices that the program's guidebook can allow us to use. Before that, I'll do another poll and ask, should pop up in a moment. This is asking if you're already familiar with the guidebook, if you might have gotten a chance to look at it. Take a moment to fill that out. And we're just short of full participation in the voting. I'll wait another moment in case anybody else wanted to do this one. We're kind of all over the place, which is perfectly fine. We've got some people who've already taken a look at it, maybe very briefly or just a while ago. Some people who this guidebook is completely new. That's perfectly perfect, because either way, we're still going to go over it. I will add a short disclaimer though, before we kind of start talk about solutions to the traffic concerns. Because of the structure of this program, this is a program that has been pre-approved by City Council, which is what allows us to get these done fairly quickly in terms of the public engagement and decision making. The designs we proposed are limited to the device toolbox and guidebook. So it means that if it's not in the toolbox, it is not an option for this project. It doesn't mean that there aren't solutions, aren't pathways for those things, but within the scope of what traffic calming can do, it is, they're not on the table. So a lot of times these are great suggestions, but they are not included in the program. But stop signs, street closures or cul-de-sac closures, enforcement, sidewalk installation or new sidewalks, sidewalk ramps, and then the removal of any existing devices. The city has resources for all of these things. They have other programs and pathways and pockets of funding to address those things and find out if they're feasible or not. So if you want more information on those things at any point, I can provide you information, and I can certainly pass information on to the city, but these are common things that, you know, if it comes to mind, we might have to move that for a side conversation. So pages 9 through 12 of the current edition of the traffic calming guidebook, I believe some changes are in the works, but devices are grouped into things you drive over and things you drive around. So they have two categories in the guidebook in terms of solutions that can be implemented. So the guidebook has, I can't recall the number of devices off the top of my head, but some of them I'm not going to cover. This is only because they're not feasible for this specific project, either from just an engineering perspective, or they don't meet the requirements set by the state, the city. So we have a couple other departments that provide input to our starter idea ahead of this meeting. So there are some things that they've deemed not feasible. So if I skip over any devices, just know that's why. So the category of things you drive over, in the guidebook, there are 4 devices. Things you drive over are devices that are intended to slow traffic by creating discomfort if traveled over at a speed exceeding 25 miles per hour. Again, this project applies to local streets, so the speed limit shouldn't be any greater than 25 miles an hour. So that's what these devices that you drive over are intended for. We've got speed humps, speed tables, raised crosswalks, raised intersections. Right now, the city has put a pause on the raised crosswalks and raised intersections. Both of these devices are under review by the department. Again, with the nature of this program intended to be budgeted for construction a lot faster than other larger projects that the city does. They want to make sure that there's a standard that can be followed, so they don't, run into any issues with grading or ADA compliance in those. So they've put a pause on those right now. Doesn't mean that they're completely off the table in the future, but for now, in terms of things you drive over, we're just looking at speed humps and speed tables. So speed humps, I think, based on the feedback from the questionnaire, a lot of people are familiar with these. There's no shortage of them throughout the city. The photo here, you've got a diagram of what a typical speed hump looks like on the left. And then on the right-hand side, there's a speed hump that was installed on Wells Street. So speed humps, they're typically 12 feet long. They're at their maximum 3 inches high, so they have a parabolic shape. And the maximum is at 3 inches. And they extend the full width of the street, except for the gutter. If you look at the diagram that's on the left, and the yellow is the speed hump, and it's just short of the gutter there. When we look at the effectiveness of speed humps, there are studies that have found benefits may include speed reduction, traffic volume reduction, crash reduction. While we don't design or use traffic calming to deter traffic, volume reduction does end up being an outcome in a small way. But other things to note regarding speed humps are that maximum height, that 3-inch height, that was designed for ease of bike usage and bike safety. So it's still tall enough that a vehicle can feel it, but the design and the height isn't going to be something that should cause any discomfort or safety concern for bikes on the road. If previously permitted, as long as street parking is legal, vehicles can park on speed humps as well. You can place trash cans on speed humps if needed. And because they're not extending into the gutter, there should be very minimal, if any, disruption to drainage and leaf debris pile up. That's not usually a concern with these devices. And then that other one, speed table, is just a larger speed hump, for lack of better terms. You've got the diagram on the left there. That photo is from Glenwood Road. I know it's not the clearest angle to get a sense of the size of it. But again, this is the other raised device that we're looking at, typically 22 feet long. So just almost double what the speed table is. Also has tapered edges. Usually the center platform is about 10 feet wide. And then again, the maximum is set to 3 inches. There have been studies with speed table treatments. Traffic volume reduction and crash reduction are the most documented results from these. I will say with maybe even perceptively you can tell, but the speed reduction is less than what you could expect with a speed hump. That platform width, it can be customized, and same things apply as with the speed hump. If parking is legal on the street, you can park on a speed table. You can place trash cans on the speed table if necessary. Bike usage, bike safety is in mind with the design, so there shouldn't be major issues with that. Usually with the traffic calming projects, we only use speed tables if the Ann Arbor Public Schools has a major bus route through there, and they like to see the tables used instead. But like I said, we share these plans with departments ahead of time, ahead of the public showing, so they're able to get their input throughout the project and just make sure that we're meeting their needs too. So just those two devices are in the category of things you drive over. I'll do another pause if there's any question on the devices, anything you want me to go back on or clarify, I can do that. I don't see anything, so I'll just keep moving forward. The other category, other group of devices in our toolbox are things you drive around. This type of device slows traffic by creating a perception of less room for error. It either visually or physically tightens the roadway, narrows it, and there are actually 7 devices within the toolbox that that are under this category that the city has approved. A good chunk of them are not applicable to this project. I will say a lot of these are due to width requirements. So for the fire department or emergency response to have the access they need on local streets, a lot of these devices don't meet the criteria. So next few slides are just going to be on the curb extension and how that's used. But curb extensions, they can be used in several designs. You can do one at the corner for a bump out. You can do it the middle of your street as a mid-block bump out. You can put 2 of them across each other, 1 on each side. And that one's called a choker that narrows, that does like a lane reduction basically. So curb extensions, these are extensions of the curb line. So they both physically and visually tighten the corridor by narrowing the street width. The photo that is on the right is at Granger Avenue. There was a bump out installed there. And so you can see that it just extends the frontage, so there's just more green space there, but it also brings out the crosswalk a little farther into the street, so someone who's using the crosswalk can safely see farther down the roadway at who may be approaching in a vehicle, and same for vehicles. If you're coming down the roadway, that would make a crosswalk user more visible, who's, you know, someone who's standing at the ramps waiting to cross. The next slide will show a chicane. So that's when you do alternating curb bump outs or mid-block bump outs. There are some things to keep in mind though when we're considering these in our design. Curb extensions, they may require drainage considerations, so sometimes it would not be ideal to install one if it would mean you know, water has no place to go and would end up collecting around the extension. Same with leaves, it might create more need for maintenance. They usually result in a loss of on-street parking, especially if they're used in the middle of the street. And then the width that we can make these, we have to make sure that we're maintaining that minimum road width required by by the fire department. So we have to maintain at least 20 feet of road width for emergency response vehicles. But studies on curb extensions have shown that they can result in speed reductions. They've had minor reductions in traffic volume, but when we're looking at the choker design specifically, a lot of the effectiveness comes from additional things like regulatory signing and just driver awareness, driver education on them. And this is just that alternate, this is that additional design with curb extensions where you alternate and stagger them to create a chicane effect. But the same considerations apply with, you know, draining, loss of drainage, loss of on-street parking, additional maintenance, and the minimum width requirements. There was one last device that's included in the guidebook. It doesn't fall under either of the two categories, but there's also the neighborhood gateway treatment. This is just like a physical landmark that indicates that, you know, tells users on the road that they're moving from a higher speed roadway to like a residential or commercial district. So this can also increase awareness for the change in speed limits. Installation of this, though, may require additional right-of-way. Additionally, the program has stated the neighborhood or adjacent property owners would have to bear costs for landscaping, installation, and maintenance. So those are our devices. We're basically looking at 3 different things that we can implement right now that apply to Carmel. One of those, the curb extension, having a couple variations in how they're used. But if there are questions, try not to go through these too fast, but I do try to get through it because I know a lot of people are just here, or, you know, a lot of us just want to get into talking about Carmel Street specifically and the starter idea. So I did get one question come in. What devices are being looked at for Carmel? Are bump outs being considered? I'll show it in a couple slides here, but bump outs did not make sense for our initial starter idea. So they're not off the table, but I can tell you they're not in the starter idea. And then the follow-up was, is there anything being considered for the curve? So I'll show, like I said, we'll get into the starter idea here. With the curve specifically, we are restricted a little as to, you know, what this project can do, but I'll put a mental note to highlight the curve in a couple slides. But really quickly, this is, again, the traffic calming website. They have a section for just like their projects. They have an interactive map where you can see all the other examples, completed projects in process, or projects that might have attempted polling, but for whatever reason did not qualify. You can see additional examples of how devices were used. And I think I finally updated the image on there. I think I've been using an older image, so this is definitely more recent of how many projects are active or have been completed. So this we'll get into, this is our next exercise, our next section where we get into the starter idea. This is a draft plan we've created. This is based on that preliminary data collection, that preliminary study that was done in the first step, the feedback from the questionnaire, the context that the city and the petitioner provided. So we're going to have plenty of opportunity to answer questions on each of the devices, discuss any changes you may want to see, keeping in mind that this project is limited to the devices we just reviewed. And there's additional engineering and design that needs to go into them before they're shared at our next meeting. But this is a starter idea. I'll just emphasize this is a starter idea. So this is just our launch pad for conversation. This is not by any means like the final design that we're going to see at the end of the public engagement. But so this is the starter idea. We're proposing 3 speed humps throughout the street. And to answer the question that just popped up, how many feet apart can multiple speed humps be installed? And I apologize, this is something that may be in the guidebook, but I skipped over. Speed humps, speed tables, they are most effective when they're used in a series. A common comment that comes up with speed humps is that, oh, they're not effective because people slow down to go over them, but then they speed right back up to get to the next one. So spacing plays a big role in that, and having them in a series also assists with that. If we just had one speed hump, it would do nothing. The city has kind of come to a consensus that they like to see them between 250 to 500 feet apart. Anything, creeping into like the 600 feet separation would be getting into an area where you would have to worry about its efficacy. So this is what we're proposing are 3. Because we have the curve there, this would be a horizontal curve. So this is a curve that's, you're driving around the curve rather than having a hill. That would be a vertical curve. So horizontal curves are in themselves considered a traffic calming device. Things like signing. I did look at whether or not it would be feasible to add some kind of median or island bump out there. It can definitely be revisited, but the initial look at it was it would not provide enough clearance for the emergency vehicles to navigate around. But the hope is that having these speed humps here creates an effect that carries through that curve, and also following up with additional speed humps after would help with any speeding or navigation issues around there. This is not the clearest photo just because it's a larger area to cover. So I have a couple photos in the next slides that are just a little more close, zoomed in on each of the devices. I can move back and forth between the slides and show if people need me to go back. That's just the aerial view, but so this is the first device, device 1. We'll start towards the Easy Street end. We're suggesting the speed hump be installed near 2780, 2785 Carmel Street. And then also keeping in mind with the scope of this project is we're doing our best to place these devices within the existing geometry. So unfortunately, this isn't something where we can tear everything out and tear out curb utilities and adjust them the way that would be the most optimal design. We kind of have to find a spot for these devices within the existing geometry of the street. So we we try to maintain, we for sure maintained the spacing that I mentioned, the 250 to 500 range. But uh, I could, once we start talking about this, we can definitely move devices around, things like that. But you will see in this photo, in this photo, there are a couple um, other colors that you see just in the roadway. Those are markings for utilities. So sometimes we're restrained in movement by those, and also um, a lot of the driveways are staggered. So we don't want to put a speed hump right in front of someone's driveway, and that's like another limiting factor to where we can place them. But this is the first speed hump. This is towards the end of Carmel, of Easy Street, or at Easy Street. I'll just go through them. Use the Q&A. Raise your hand freely. Like I said, I can go back and forth between these if anyone wishes. But the second speed hump is after the curve, um, around 2621, 2622 Carmel Street. There was a question that popped up. Oh yes, so the first speed hump, I'll go back to that. The first speed hump, so this stretch, or maybe go back farther. So I believe it's after the curve, but this stretch of Carmel does not have any curb and gutter. So the question is, with the speed hump being in an area with no curb and gutter, is there concern drivers will drive over the adjacent lawns to miss the speed hump? I can't say it's out of the realm of possibilities. If I can't say that it's something that could be designed to avoid, because additionally how do I want to answer that? I wouldn't say that it's a huge concern. I wouldn't say that it's out of the realm of possibility. I think if anyone who lives in this stretch is on the call, if uh, if that's something that's definitely something that would have to be taken into consideration when we're talking about whether or not we want these devices. I don't. Yeah, I think I'll just have to stick with, I wouldn't say it's impossible that someone would consider doing that, but I I don't think I would say that it's that I believe it's a concern great enough um, to say that the speed hump wouldn't have any use or any effectiveness for it. That's probably not a great answer uh, that you're hoping for, um, but yeah, it's definitely a consideration. I wish I had bear with me for one moment while I pull up a photo so I can share. So looking at Google Earth, I can definitely confirm that there has been but this is more towards that curve. But let me show you a couple photos from Google Earth just so everyone can see the same thing. Oh, it is so fun working with one screen. Let's see which. Okay, let me go back. Okay, so you should be able to see the photos that I added on one of our previous slides. Um, the photo, let me get the little laser pointer thing too. Uh, the photo, the smaller one here on the right is Carmel facing EC Street. The big curve is we've just gotten past the curve. So you can see that you do have drivers who will venture off the side of the roadway. So it looks like that may be an existing concern, an existing issue already. This is about the area that we're looking at proposing this speed hump, this device number one. So we do see that the yards on both sides are pretty even. And yeah, I guess I'll still have to leave it at it. It's not out of the realm of possibilities for for a driver to do that. But I would also think that since we're doing these speed humps in a series, the person is already traveling at the proper speed limit and does not need to, you know, swerve to avoid the speed humps, because usually people do that when they're going too fast and they haven't slowed down quick enough and are trying to avoid the impact. And also it seems like it's an existing issue, but again, I'll just leave it at, and it would have to be a consideration, especially for those who would be directly impacted, who are on those property lines. But that second speed hump, that one is, get the laser pointer again. That curve that we're talking about is still over here. The larger distance that we have, again, is with the hopes that having multiple speed humps is addressing issues at this curve, and allowing us to utilize this curve as a traffic calming device itself. And that's what's giving us this maximum kind of larger end of spacing. But this area we've got curb. Just a reminder of the considerations with speed humps. If on-street parking is legal, parking on the speed hump is perfectly fine. These are designed with, bikes in mind as well, and maintenance, so like trash takeout, that this won't interrupt with those either. And then our last one, last speed hump that we're proposing in the starter idea is closer to Towner. I'm not sure if there's if anyone can give context to where they might see speeding coming from the most, but it seemed like speeding was just the main concern. The main concern was that curve, and for the most part, it's the cut through traffic that is creating issues. I don't know if anyone can add whether they're seeing speeding coming from the Towner end of the street or the Easy Street end. I know there's that roundabout there that probably deters um, speeding right off of the roadway, but with this one, we're a safe distance away from the intersection. We're maintaining, we're starting to set the expectation of, people coming from Towner. They're going to see that this is an area with speed humps, and having that straightaway before the curve is hopefully bringing the speeds down to, the proper speed limit, increasing the awareness. And then once we get to the other end towards Easy, again, carrying that awareness into any pedestrians that might be using the crosswalk into the park. Oh, thank you. So there's a comment that came in that most speeding this person observes is coming from Easy Street heading to Towner. Oh, okay. So people are taking the curve, going into yards and hitting mailboxes. Oh, lovely. Let's go back out to the, oh, no. Let's go back onto the aerial. So what this comment is saying, a lot of the speeding is coming from this end of the street, going through this curve too fast and ending up in someone's yard or ending up destroying property. Does anyone, I apologize, I should have looked this up out of the meeting, but does anyone know how long that what do we call this again? This roundabout has been? It looks fairly new. I mean, I can pull it up and check, but if anyone can let me know offhand. This was installed when Easy Street was redone. Yes, I know. I saw. Oh, that's another thing I can add as context. Thank you. In the initial petition, there was a statement about wanting, waiting for waiting for repaving. So I know that was addressed over 5 years. We're saying 5 years for this roundabout. So this has been plenty of time for people to adjust. To adjust to the new traffic device. The roundabout was originally installed more than 15 years ago is what we're getting. Okay. Early 2000s. That's crazy. More than 15 years ago brings us all the way back to the early 2000s. I know there was a lot of comment about a lot of feedback not liking the roundabout, and the roundabout actually, the feedback was that the roundabout was actually not helpful to people who are trying to cross. Okay, so about 5 years ago, there was some reconstruction done at the roundabout. The roundabout itself has been around for quite some time now. So even 5 years is plenty of time to to get over the initial adjustments to something new. And then there's another addition here that the time of day determines the speed direction of due to Packard and Platt. Okay, so given time of day, the speeding and cut through traffic could be coming from either end. Okay, and then just because there's a school in the area. Get a lot of new faces coming in and out. Okay, well, with what we're, with what we are, what we have, with what, oh my gosh, with what we have at our disposal right now, because raised intersections, raised crosswalks, those are on hiatus at the moment. I am hesitant to touch anything at the Easy Street corner. If the perception is, or the consensus is, that the roundabout would be, that intersection would be easier to use or safer to use without that roundabout, I will say that would have to be a separate petition. I can certainly note the issue with the roundabout, but okay, Easy Street roundabout is not an issue. Gotcha. Okay, it did come back in the questionnaire that it was not helpful to, it didn't help pedestrians, and it was making the crossing more dangerous. So I'll just throw it out there that if there is an idea that this roundabout is not useful for the neighborhood any longer, removing the device would have to just be a separate petition to the program. But with what we're given now and the curve being our main focus, I would say with our starter idea, the spacing could be moved around if there's anyone who has specific issue with its placement. We can definitely move things or see how we can move things around. Like I said, the initial look at this curve and wanting to put like some kind of median in here, or tightening the curve. Initially, it looks like it would not meet the emergency vehicle requirements. But if also there's very little awareness of the curve now, the speed humps may do more to bring awareness to that and carry it through the curve, rather than, tightening the curve and potentially creating just a more narrow speedway for drivers to go around there. I have a couple other slides or a couple other polling questions just to see how we feel about each of the devices. I don't know if there's any comment or feedback that we want to share about the devices before I start doing any polling questions. But we still have about 28 minutes left in our meeting time. So we can definitely discuss things more, but I'll just get the polling out of the way. So there's a couple of different options for these questions, the format of these questions. There's a yes and no on support, but there's also an option if you are in the project area, or if you're not one of the addresses that received the mailing package would be considered outside the project area. But please do vote regardless, if you're in or outside the project area. And again, if there's more that we want to talk about, or more questions, or thoughts or feelings on any of these, or where they are, this is your time to get that out, so we can all make sure that we're moving in the right direction. Oh, do you ever come to an area and do a walkthrough with the neighbors? That actually will be what is available in prior to the second meeting. We're going to set up like a walkthrough on your own time. You can walk through, and you'll be able to, we'll put signing, and we'll use, hopefully the ground isn't too gross at that point. We can mark things out in spray paint so you can see. Okay. Let's see. Maybe consider one more speed hump on the straightaway section between Towner and the car. Okay, I hear what you're saying. Okay, so we do have some pushback on this. I don't know if this is because of, I don't know if the non-support is due to, not wanting vehicles to drive around into property, or just a general, just generally not wanting the speed humps on the street too. That all answers are valid, or all reasons are valid. If there's any other context that we could talk about, we can do that. Go back and so this is the second one, the second speed hump, and then the comment that just came in was to add another one here somewhere between the curve and Towner. And let me measure while some of the voting still comes in. Let me measure really quickly how much room we actually have to work with. Like I said before, we do get restricted by utilities and driveways. So we've got about 750. Got about 750 feet from, the intersection here to right about where the edge of this box is. And I will say with these questions, I know it's very vague. Do you support device 2? I would say when you're answering, do you support, the type of device and the general location? If there's more that we want to add, like yes, but, or no, but, that would be something that could be added in Q&A, or open up the mic. I will launch another after this one. I got about 60% participation on this poll. I'll finish this poll up in a minute, give anyone a chance to answer, and then I'll launch the one for device 3, and then I will launch it just like an additional poll if we support having uh, an additional speed hump again somewhere between here if we want to try and fit 3 speed humps in this stretch. And I almost got full participation polling. I'll just read these questions, give you one last moment. Someone commented, I should let you know that when they repaved the road last year, they moved the fire hydrant to the west side of the street. It's not directly where we have it on the map. And then another follow-up, has snow removal been considered? Currently plow comes along the curve and dumps snow right after it. Oh, after it starts the street. Usually, so I know that the city does communicate with maintenance on devices, if devices get damaged or if new devices were installed. Also, a lot of times they will use flagging prior to the season of snow just to alert when things have changed. Okay, didn't get full participation. But it looks like we're heading in the same direction. Looks like most of us are on board with this. There does look like there's hesitation or disagreement. Again, if there's additional context that would be helpful or anything else that we want to maybe get some answers to or that I can answer. So this comment said, edge of the box would be a great location for another speed hump. I will say if we do add another speed hump somewhere here, these would have to be adjusted because we don't want to put anything any closer than like 250. And again, that depends on what utilities or driveways may be in the way. Because then we're just slowing things down too much. Which I know sounds silly to say in a residential area on top of that, but also keeping in mind that we want to try to be aware of putting in too many things. Because if we put in too many things and not knowing, whether that was the outcome, whether the outcome was because of that, or if there was something else that could have given us the same effect. But I will do this one really quick. This one's just that third device towards the end, and then I'll launch one more about whether or not we want to see if we can put in a 4th device. And actually, I'll just do that one. Oh, wow. Okay, so looks like this one is got one more that did not vote, but I'm thinking that might be not at full participation just yet, but I will. So this one didn't get any no's on this one, but also didn't get full participation. So just real quick, if we're all on this, if that's an agreement with everyone, if we would like to see an additional device. I think the issue with that location is the sewer is there. It is the beginning of where the curbs begin. Okay. Okay, well, this one we're a little split. So I'll get the area real quick again. So so it looks like majority is saying they would not want to see an additional speed hump. Um, I will still look at whether or not it would be feasible, but it looks like maybe we're comfortable with the three that are on here. The hydrant being moved over, I'll fix that for the next drawing, but it would not impact any of the devices as they are now, which is a good thing. Oh, goodness. So that was all the polling that we had. Let me get back to where we were. So it seems like we're getting some pushback on the on the speed humps. I don't know if that's just um, not wanting, not an agreement on traffic calming in general, or if it was the devices. I will have my contact information if there's any other context at the end that people think of that want to share. Um, Again, this polling is anonymous, and there's commenting that's anonymous. I don't want to make it seem like it's not a space where we can share disagreements either. Um, but I can look at, for their next meeting, I will look at the feasibility of adding a fourth speed hump in that straightaway. But it looks like of who's here now, we're not everyone's in agreement that they would like to see an additional device. Curb and gutter start in the proximate area where a fourth hump could be. Okay, we can take a look at that one. Another comment, have you considered markings directly on the pavement? I know it's hard to see in winter, yet it would be visible in the majority of the year. So the pavement markings are not a part of this program. Only the markings that are required with the device would be on here. But yeah, I don't think the city typically puts markings um, on their residential streets unless they're for advisory lanes or things like that. Unfortunately, but yeah, I agree. Sometimes one of the most efficient and cost-effective ways to find a solution are just pavement markings. But this, having that tactile thing you drive over is what helps make these effective. So as we were talking about on-site walking, over the next couple weeks, what we will do is kind of take the feedback, look at feasibility of a fourth device, but it kind of sounds like maybe we just we'll probably keep the starter idea as is. But today's presentation and the recording will be on the project website over the next couple weeks. Also, a summary of the polling and feedback will be posted to the site as well. We will use the feedback to, go back and look at the starter idea, clean it up, and create what will be called a preliminary plan. So ahead of meeting two actually has two parts. So there's a self-guided tour that is set up sometime ahead of the meeting date, and then that meeting date again will be on Zoom. Our meeting 2 is scheduled for April 9. And for the self-guided tour, you will get a mailing packet at least 2 weeks ahead of our April 9th meeting. The packet will have device images and descriptions. You'll be able to use that to do a self-guided tour prior to our meeting. As long as the weather is allowing us, we will mark out the approximate device locations using spray paint. We'll have temporary signing up there to show the device image and give you a description of it. You could also use Google Earth Street View if you wanted to get this done if you're not able to get outside and walk out there. But the hope is that you get the mailing packet, you get a chance to visually see how much space these would take up and where they would be, and then any kind of feedback you have, you can send it to me ahead of the meeting. You can share it at the meeting. But during that meeting, again, it'll be on Zoom. Wednesday, April 9, also at 6 o'clock. We will present the preliminary plan. We'll answer questions. We'll do polling like we just did. It usually ends up being a lot shorter because we don't have to go through all that introductory stuff, on like the introduction to the program. But after meeting 2, our final step is the final poll. Again, after meeting 2, there will be a couple weeks where we post things to the project website, do any revisions that might come up. We try not to revise too much because we don't want to have, we want to make sure people attend meeting 2 and leave knowing what the expectations of knowing what the plan will look like. But it'll be finalized in the final poll and sent to all of the project area residents. So all residents in the project area, as well as like any property owners who may have different addresses, they will all be mailed the final polling package, which will contain a cover letter, an image of the final plan, and your final polling card. So just like the initial questionnaire, you'll be able to either submit it by post or complete it online. For this plan to move forward and start being considered for budget approval, of the people who participate in the poll, more than 50% have to support. If the criterion is met, what the team does is they prepare a cost estimate. It's submitted to City Council for budget approval. If this does make it through to that stage, look, I think right now the city is looking at 2027 construction. So this wouldn't be constructed right away, but it would be budgeted. It would be budgeted for that year. So this is just a summary, calendar summary of what I just went over. Meeting number 2, April 9th. We'll clean everything up and get the final polling ready for you to be sent out in the mail May 13. And you will have a deadline of June 2nd to either electronically complete it or get it in the mail. And then we'll be able to post the results and such within a couple weeks after that. Oh, thank you for the note. There was another note that a new fire hydrant was added at 2554 Carmel. Okay, so that we can make sure that one's added to the diagram. Like I said, today's presentation and its recording are going to be posted to the project website in the next week or 2. Also a summary of the polling and any kind of anything that may come up between now and then if I get an email or a call and there's just context that needs to be shared. I will actually try to incorporate the feasibility, an answer to the feasibility of a fourth speed hump. Like I said, it sounds like we're comfortable with the 3 devices as is. But again, please reach out at any point in the process. That's my contact information. That's the project website. If there's anything you want to share or didn't think of, don't think of until after the end of this meeting, please reach out to me. If you would like to be added to an email list, which basically the email list is just to notify you that a mailing is coming, you can drop your email in the Q&A, or just reach out to me and I'll make sure that you're added to that list. But otherwise, that's all that I have. If anyone else has any questions or comments, I can stay online for a few minutes. I will add, let's see. Oh, I still have the results up, sorry. I will add or launch the demographics survey again. If you didn't get a chance to complete that prior to the meeting, this is just an optional and anonymous survey that the city uses. So otherwise, that's all that I had to share and go through. I want to thank everyone for attending and giving their time to this and participating. One last time, my contact information is on the screen there. Please reach out. Otherwise, I will hopefully virtually see you all in April at our next meeting. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.